When you think of the best watches in the world, what company comes to mind? Chances are high that you thought of Rolex, one of the best-known brands in the world. Although their product can't do much besides answering one single question: what time it is. Nobody really needs a Rolex, but many people want one. A Rolex is the typical status symbol with incredible appeal for millions of people looking to spend their money. And that's largely thanks to sports. Rolex built their brand strategy on sponsoring athletes and events from the most elegant and luxurious sports. Roger Federer, Tiger Woods, Annika Sorenstam, they all wear a Rolex while accepting their countless trophies at the winners' ceremonies. Welcome to Athletic Interest. In this video, we explain how Rolex used sports marketing to become the most iconic watch brand in the world. Rolex is the most recognized watch brand. Established in London, but moved to watch capital Geneva after the First World War, it has been the most sold luxury watch in recent years. They are the market leader, with almost a quarter of the market share in 2020. That's almost 3 times the share of their closest competitor. It's the only watchmaker to make it onto the Forbes list of the most valuable brands. Rolex have recorded revenues of more than $8 billion, and their brand alone was valued at $7.9 billion in 2020. That's impressive for one product that technically no one even needs. Rolex has managed to become an icon. Such status, however, is not created overnight. In the beginning, it was the functionality that stood out. As we can learn on their website, Rolex has built its brand on the back of innovation and quality. And this is obviously very important. But it's not enough anymore. The younger generations, which have all grown up with a smartphone, need to be convinced of the values of a traditional timepiece from a whole other angle. The brand needed to move beyond sheer functionality to impress the modern customer. How did they do this? In the beginning, Rolex used slogans such as "World's first waterproof wristwatch" and "A landmark in the history of time measurement." To underline the technical superiority of their timepiece, it was important to have the right testimonials. When Hans Wilsdorf founded Rolex in the early 20s, his aim was to replace the traditional pocket watches with one of the supreme innovations of his time. A watch worn on the wrist, resistant to dust and water. He identified the sports world as the perfect environment to push his newly formed brand. He asked Mercedes Gleitze, an English swimmer, to wear the Rolex as she attempted to swim the English Channel. The watch lasted through the 10-plus hour attempt, stayed in good shape, kept accurate time, and didn't allow a drop of water into the casing. With this historic achievement, Gleitze became the first Rolex testimonial. That was 1927, long before Red Bull took over extreme sports. That wasn't the only stunt. Rolex watches have accomplished some of the most challenging adventures, from scaling the Himalayan peaks, crossing the polar ice caps, breaking the sound barrier, to exploring the depth of the ocean. Nowadays, their slogan, "A crown for every achievement," has been perfectly chosen to address their key audience. Their biggest customer group are individuals who have just got a new job, promotion or pay raise and want to show off to everyone else. Their second biggest markets are parents or grandparents buying a timepiece for their children who recently graduated or are having an important birthday. The slogan shows Rolex moving from selling a product to selling a story. And one of the best storytellers is sports. That's why the biggest watch companies fight for the right to be the official timekeeper of the major sporting events. It is comparable to Nike or Adidas signing athletes. If you like the event, it is more likely that you also like the official timekeeper. Omega is currently established at the Olympic Games, Tissot at the Tour de France, and Hublot in European football. But no watch brand is as present as Rolex. Rolex has picked out their events carefully. So who do they sponsor and why? Even though Red Bull and Rolex both have their roots in extreme sports, they rarely get in each other's way nowadays. Rolex is no longer looking to prove the quality of their products by putting it on the wrist of people swimming through channels and climbing up mountains. They would rather choose the sports that best fit their brand image and that are played and watched by their target group. In other words, where there is an audience that can afford a Rolex. The result is a heavy Rolex presence in tennis, with its events rich in tradition like Wimbledon, as well as golf, yachting and equestrian sports. The only clear overlap between Red Bull and Rolex can be seen in Formula One, but the two brands play different roles. One wanted to create the youngest world champion with its energy drink. Rolex wants to show that they have such a status that they can be seen almost all over the track, and even name the tracks after them. Football is not a focus sport for Rolex. It's a sport for the masses with a huge audience, and therefore the obvious choice for many companies investing in sports marketing. But Rolex is not a product for the masses, so it makes sense that they stay out of it most of the time. It turns out that Rolex doesn't have to sponsor some sports to get exposure. World boxing champion Lawrence Okolie said that a Rolex was his motivation to get the title. His promoter had promised him, if Lawrence were to win the title someday, he would buy him a gold Rolex Skydweller. In an interview he said, "Every single moment in that ring, that's all I was thinking." He spoke like the best testimonial Rolex could ever wish for. And they didn't even pay for it. Boxing is not a sport Rolex is eager to be associated with anyway. Better sponsor the Oscars. There is at least one big advantage that Rolex possesses when it comes to building their brand. Rolex is owned by the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation and has no shareholders. So, per definition, Rolex is a non-profit organization and is willing to say no to short-term profit to ensure the longevity and strength of the brand. Non-profit does not mean that they have no interest in generating revenue and building their brand. But each year, after everyone gets paid and all marketing deals are made, they donate the rest of their profit to charity, which on closer inspection could be seen as marketing as well. If there were no wristwatches today that do nothing except showing the time, they would probably never be invented in today's world. But because watch companies developed their brands in the way they did, they're still big business today. Rolex has perfected storytelling. In the beginning with slogans that linked the quality of Rolex watches to extraordinary achievements and world records. When it became difficult to stand out against other watch brands with quality, Rolex changed strategies. It was no longer about producing watches with outstanding quality, but establishing Rolex as a reward for outstanding achievements. That's why it will remain important for Rolex to sign the best athletes and to be present at the most prestigious sports events. With Roger Federer, Rolex has one of the best testimonials they could wish for. No scandals, extraordinary performance, and for each of his Grand Slam victories, he has put on a new Rolex before receiving the trophy. Every time I put on my Rolex, it reminds me of those great moments. It also reminds me that if you do not work hard, somebody else will, and they eventually will pass you. In a world where everyone can read the time on their phone, with testimonials like Federer, Rolex still manages to regularly swoon customers to spend several thousand on a mass-produced watch and not having to deal with any buyer's remorse. Some of the questions we get most in the comments are on how we do our animations, what editing software we use, or if we have any advice on how to start a YouTube channel. When we started this channel, one of the first things we did was a class on Skillshare by the amazing Polymatter on how to make animated YouTube videos from scratch. He explains the whole video creation process, from picking a topic, writing a script, to animations, and how to put it all together. It certainly helped us a lot, and that's why we are very happy that this video is now sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. You can explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. Whether you want to learn motion design, video editing, or creative writing, you can do it on Skillshare. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, and they are always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. And it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. The first 1,000 of our subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of premium membership, so you can explore your creativity.